Ask you to take a seat so we can get started. Thank you. Let's use our indoor voices. Thank you very much. Looks like we're all here.
Let's sit down this time.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Entertainment and Facilities Committee. I'm Chairwoman Nuri Martinez, and with me are Councilmember Mr. Rue, Mr. O'Farrell, and Mr. Gregorian. Mr. Clerk, if there are no objections, I'd like to take item 9 on consent. Without any objections, that will be the order. Mr. Clerk, can you read item number 1 into the record?
Item number 1 is verbal report from Film LA relative to the California Film and Television Tax Credit Program, including the effects on local economic impacts, local employment, and other ancillary benefits.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Mr. Ali is going to be speaking on our verbal report, as well as Mr. Tom Davis from IATSE.
Thank you.
And Ed Duffy, the Vice President of Teamsters 399. If you can all join us. I think we're missing one chair, but we can fix that real quick. There we go. Maybe we can move a little bit to my right so that Mr. Duffy is not up against the projector. Is that better? Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Ali, do you want to begin?
Sure. Thank you very much. And I'd like to recognize members of the Film and Television Production Alliance who are here, as well as members of the board, two of them who happen to be on both of those seats today, who were all a big part of helping make AB 1839 get through, along with people in this city and cities around the state. Locally, speaking about what's happened here, I've handed out some material for you, so I'll be fairly brief on the discussion. But what we found that this new tax credit program has resulted in some substantial increases in local production. In particular, in feature film, this past quarter, we found that about 13.5% of our film has been directly related with that incentive program. And then on television, in television drama, almost 22% of the drama work that's being done in LA now is coming from the tax credit. There's about 14.5% of our TV comedy that's also related to that, and about 14% of the pilots. And by the way, pilots overall have gone down, but they're making up for some of the losses we would have had by the fact that that tax credit's been made available to them. The good thing to know is that we're looking at 58 projects, which include 21 feature films and 37 television projects in the first year of funding, including 5 relocating television series. That's going to equate to almost $670 million in wages going to the people who work behind the cameras on these productions, and $1.7 billion in direct production dollars back into the state of California. This filming is taking place all over the state. But in LA specific, what we know is that we're seeing an overall gain in these key areas of production that sustain the industry. Unfortunately, or it's not unfortunate, we have a hard time telling you about numbers of jobs because the way that the film tax credit works is on wages, not on numbers of jobs created, so we don't have the ability to provide data on those numbers. But what we do know is that for each television show, we're looking at somewhere between 200 and 300 jobs, and depending on the size of the film, it could be in the low thousand numbers of those jobs as well. What we also know is, having talked to our vendors and other suppliers of the film industry, that many of them have returned their supplies and people who they had sent to other states to work back to LA. And so they are fully here, fully engaged again, and really thrilled with the outcome of it. The result really is a much better employment picture in the industry that these gentlemen can talk more about than I can, certainly. a much busier time for us at Film LA and for city departments that are helping to support the industry. And I've included for you not only our stats, but two pieces from the California Film Commission talking about the effects so far, but also giving you some information about the upcoming dates for the next round of funding, which will be at $330 million.
Mr. Davis.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess first we're going to start with a couple clips that we sent over.
Let me see if I can get that. Can you turn off the lights? Maybe it'll look better.
Excuse me.
Can you make it a little bigger? There you go. And I think if we hit the lights, that
And I'd just like to point out the second clip you're going to see was actually just a conversation I was having with a member. And I thought, you know what, I better turn my phone on for this. These are just all cell phone videos. They're not, really staged. They're not produced. We just went to members and said, tell us your stories. Let us know what you're thinking. And so with that.
I wouldn't be here without the California tax incentive. I'd be probably in another state somewhere. And I'm very grateful.
Very happy.
So happy. Could not be happier.
Eternally grateful.
Very happy to be home.
I'm thrilled.
Ever since the beginning of 2014, I've been working out of state on various projects.
The last 2 years I've shot in North Carolina, New Mexico.
The last one I was in a hotel room for 5 months.
So I can't tell you how much I appreciate this tax incentive, how I've seen it affect the city of Los Angeles and the state as a whole as well.
To stay with my family, my wife, my 2 beautiful kids, and get to work pretty consistently. It's nice.
So many of my colleagues that were having trouble finding work prior to the tax incentive now happily working.
I'm really glad that Code Black's here in Los Angeles so I could work at home and see my family.
We can stay in town, stay with our families, and put food on the table.
I get to see my wife when I go home now.
Yeah.
Instead of living in a hotel for 3 months.
It's nice to be close to my son and not having to be traveling the country working outside the state.
I can go home at night. I can see my family. I can actually have a normal life and not feel like I just live in a hotel room.
I can't tell you how great it's been to work with a crew that gets to go home and see their children and their families and their pets every night. It makes a huge difference. People are jazzier, people work harder, and they make a lot more jokes.
From my family and myself, we appreciate the California initiative bringing film back to California.
It's so nice to work right here in California. Thank you.
I love working in California.
So thank you, State of California, for the tax incentive program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, California.
can you do something about the volume?
No. It's not going to get any higher than that. We have a microphone to hear.
Wrong answer.
It's like the microphone isn't working though. Let's try this one.
It's not like you can just...
No? It was working earlier. Of course not. Of course it's not going to work.
This is what happened.
it's not like you can just...
Well, there's a glitch. Sorry.
No problem. So I'd like to thank Kathy Garmacy from the Directors Guild for her work in putting together the clip that you saw. And unfortunately, she can't be here today because she's traveling. Otherwise, she would have been up here with us. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you for having us up here today. And for us, it's sort of a good news, bad news on this. We had anticipated having more of our local union reps here, as well as some members, to tell you what they see in their stories. That's the bad news. The good news is that the reason why they're not here is because it's so busy. The reps are actually in the process of either negotiating contracts or out in the field, and the members we had talked to about coming up here, they're working.
So it's all good news.
So,
It's all good news.
yeah, that's
all good.
you can't ask much more than that, right? One of the rank and file members we're going to have here is a member of local aid. His name is Jack Chichay, he's going to kill me for this, Chichazian. Jack was born and raised in Los Angeles. He'd been at GRIP since 1991 and never had a concern about his employment. These are actually sort of his words. I'm just sort of transposing them. He was going to talk to you about what it's like making a living in the industry. He was going to talk about how up until just a few years ago, he'd never had to worry about attending his children's sporting events or birthdays. He was quite content in his middle-class life. Then things started to change when production started to flee around 2008. He had initially turned down those calls for work in Louisiana and Georgia. But after a while, in order to support his family, he found that he had run out of options and started to accept those jobs out of town. In 2013, he spent so much time out of California that he actually only spent a total of 5 weeks at home. Buying airfare for the family to visit him on location became a very expensive norm. Without making this too long, Jack asked me to deliver his thanks for the invitation to be before you, but because he's the key grip on an incentivized show production called The Shooters, he is unable to be here today. We had also planned on having Kathleen Felix Hager, who is a costume designer, member of IA Local 892, married to a Local 80 member as well. She's a costume designer. She was going to talk to you about her experience on the production of Veep. She had spent the first couple of years on the show in Baltimore, coming home only 1 weekend a month to her husband. Now, the really good news about that, she's still on this very same production. It's just that now she gets to come home every night because they're shooting on the Paramount lot. So the program has worked. I mean, I can give you hundreds of these stories, but I think that all you really have to do to see how well it's worked is just go around the town, right? And you see the signs, the no parking signs and the crew designation, the base camp designation signs around. The studio lots are actually full, and employment for our members, we haven't seen employment numbers like this in over 10 years. So I want to thank this committee, also the city, for doing its part in making this a reality and for making it possible for our members to actually make a living here in the city again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Duffy?
Hi, Ed Duffy, Teamsters Local 399. I think Tom's pretty much covered most of what I would say, and I don't want to continue with the stories, but I would say that with our drivers, our location managers, even our casting directors, keeping production here and keeping them home, drivers particularly are on the road a lot, and when they leave for a long time, and so do the location managers, because they're prepping things for months and months before things even start shooting. So a lot of these people have not seen their families grow. They haven't seen they haven't been to any sort of school plays. Their kids get really upset, and it's interesting hearing the stories that they tell me on a daily basis about how happy they are to be home and how they're able to stay home a lot more. Even now, we were so busy for the past 3 months, and generally this time period is generally a much quieter time period because in the past we've had like a lull right about now, and then this month and in June, and things picked up in July because it was sort of cyclical. But right now we are extremely busy, and it's a great thing. And I talk about our members in certain ways to a lot of different people, and the idea of being able to stay home and see pictures of them on Facebook with their kids, when I'm normally seeing pictures of them from some hotel room taking a picture outside the window, is really heartwarming. And that's about it. Again, I thank you, and we're going to keep moving forward and continue. Thanks.
So members, one of the reasons why I wanted this verbal report is because a lot of times we read about these big films coming into Los Angeles, and sometimes we do hear about the complaints in terms of, filming in your neighborhood, but what often gets left out are the stories that you all talked about and what you see on your camera phone. And in my district, there are a lot of catering businesses that do a lot of major catering for the movie industry. So I can tell you firsthand, I know people that work for these catering companies that don't get to see their kids half of the year because they're in Georgia or because they're filming in Baltimore. I have a staff member in the district whose both of their parents work for the movie industry, and they're costume designers, and one of them sews and the other one designs. Both of her parents are gone 9 months out of the year. And as the oldest child, she sometimes has to look after her siblings. And so can you imagine being, 18 years old and having to look after two little ones while your parents have to go make ends meet in Georgia? And at times, sometimes the dad stays there and sometimes the mom gets to fly home. So these are real stories that sometimes get left out in terms of when we talk about what these incentives do to our community. So that's why I think it was important for all of us to hear that testimony. One of the things I do want to ask, though, is as we're attracting more filming back in California, what are other states doing to counter that? I'm sure Georgia isn't happy that some of these films are now relocating to California. Are we seeing other states perhaps putting more aggressive tax incentives packages available to lure some of these films back into their states? Are we seeing that movement yet?
We haven't seen any of that yet.
Okay.
Vancouver just recently reduced their tax credit, mainly to balance out against the dollar imbalance with Canada. But what we've seen happen in the immediate years prior to this tax credit was many of these states beginning to relook at their programs. And because they don't have an institutional base like we do, they've either capped or reduced the amount of available funding. And so we'll be watching, as everyone will be, about whether anyone tries to up the ante at this point, which is one of the things people have feared. But at this stage, no one has done that.
Some of the aggressiveness has come from other countries, actually. We've seen the UK step up and start a television tax credit. And we've seen other countries in Europe and other areas really step up. And it's been, that's a challenge. I mean, we definitely, obviously we have the best situation here. I think just being competitive is enough for us to draw production back here because of the weather and the infrastructure and the people and the crew members. Because if you go to another state like Georgia or something like that, they don't have the deep crew base that we have, and they really are going to have trouble developing that, and that's what we really have to offer.
But one thing you have seen is you've seen certain segments of the industry try to promote their labor base, right? Which is, I've seen a couple posts, be it on Facebook or even sort of industry ads, if you will, and it's actually gets rather comical at times because they talk about these big films that were shot in, say, Georgia or North Carolina, and then they sort of run like a crew list, right? I know those people. Yeah. Right? I know all the people, the first four names in each department come from LA. And so I see that as sort of their attempt to hold on to, what they have, because in Georgia, their incentive is what it is, and it's very sweet, and there's no reason to sweeten that pot. As it was indicated in North Carolina, that put a cap on there. So I see that, happening, and I find, like I said, I find it rather amusing at times because those people that they claim to have as a labor base, well, they're home now. They're home now, so they no longer have that labor base.
So what do we need to do to ensure that the tax credit stays in place for a longer time? Who's our advocate in Sacramento?
I think that you're looking at everybody in this room.
Is there someone in the legislature that's
Well, you have somebody who's been a tremendous resource sitting just to your right, and
Careful,
No,
Clark.
no.
He's gonna move in, yeah, quick.
I was leaving that one open so everyone can, if you go far enough right.
I've got a suggestion on that, actually,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
sure.
You know, success has 1,000 fathers and failure's an orphan. And I think what we do to ensure that we have continued support in Sacramento is exactly what you're doing with this hearing, and exactly what each of these three does every time they have an opportunity to speak about it, which is to translate this so-called incentive program into economic development, real jobs, real middle class revitalization. Because still, there are people who see these incentive programs as being somehow incentivizing a wealthy industry. And it's utter rubbish because, frankly, the studios don't give a damn where they shoot. The studios are fine taking California's incentive or Louisiana's or Vancouver's or whoever's. It works out, pencils out for them one way or the other. But the people you described in your district were the lucky ones because they got to travel and work. Even though they were away from their families, the ones who aren't so lucky are the ones who are, not the type that they take with them, the type whose job can be replaced by somebody in Louisiana or North Carolina or Vancouver or wherever. So, and so you hear people who work 3 weeks a year, before this work started coming back. So the point of all this is, if we continue to tell this story of how this is paying immense dividends in state and local revenues, in actual economic activity, in changing families for the better, that's what gets people in Sacramento to pay attention and to understand that it's worthwhile. And you raised exactly the right question about what are other states doing, because the fear has always been, oh, well, it's just a race to the bottom. We do ours, and then Michigan is going to up the ante and do theirs. Well, they're not. We're right now where the United States was with the Soviet Union in 1980. We're upping the ante, and they're not able to match it. Michigan failed, ultimately. Michigan almost did send their state into, terrible economic ruin by an incentive that was too rich that couldn't be sustained. Other states are thinking, maybe we can't afford this anymore. So if we continue to press on this and up the ante ourselves, I think we can defeat these other states and cause a lot of those other state legislators to say it's not worth it anymore. Let's start incentivizing the car industry instead, or some other industry to come here, and let Hollywood have Hollywood. We're not quite there, and as Ed says, we have an international marketplace, and we'll always have competition, but we'll have fewer of those targeted state legislative efforts to take us on if we continue to demonstrate the success of this program.
I think Mr. Gregorian hits on a really good point. There's this misconception that this incentivizes only the studios. But have you quantified how many new businesses this incentive has actually created? Small businesses that have actually
we haven't
created
been,
as a
we
result
haven't
of the
been
tax
able to
incentive?
do that yet. We're in the process, because the incentive's really not even quite a year old. Right. I mean, we do have information on, a few businesses that were one that did close and was able to come back, a prop shop. And we have, I can bring up business owners that could talk about how they were on the brink and now they're, in a good state of health and all those sorts of things. But we're still in the data collection process for bringing all that together, right? Because again, the enhanced incentive hasn't even been a year yet for its full force in effect. So it's hard to get those numbers and to actually quantify all of that.
Some of that information comes when they file their final accounting, and then that identifies where the money was spent, and then it can be tracked down to how that actually happened and who got that funds. But at this point, it's not ready yet.
Yeah, but what I can tell you is, in terms of employment, it's estimated that we're probably close to 3 to 4 million hours more for those people participating in the motion picture industry and health plans. So Ed's members, the IE members, laborers, the unions that are involved in that health plan. This year, we're looking at about a 4 million hour increase in the hours contributed. So that I mean, not to be too parochial about it, but for me, that's what really matters, right? That means our members are working, right? That means those mortgages are being paid.
And when you talk about Sacramento, we do pass information like you just saw here to a lot of our friends up there. I mean, everything we do, everything we're doing, we're constantly bombarding our friends up there with what this information so that they're keeping track of it. I mean, our biggest mission, I think, is by the time we go back, some of the people that are there now that were our supporters are going to be gone. And we have to educate the new crop of people that are coming in there. And that is what we're sort of in process of doing. We also are very happy about the fact, actually, that Northern California right now is having a boon. They've got 5 productions shooting there. They're completely out of people to work on those productions. Some of that has been created by the tax credits because there are a couple productions up there. That helps us a great deal in the future when we go back, because some of those people from Sacramento are going to be paying attention to things like that. So and the same is in San Diego. We had a pilot that just shot down in San Diego that looks like it'll become a series or very close to it. So doing that really helps us, make the state come together. And hopefully when we do have to go back to extend or expand or do whatever we do, that we have all that support.
Members, any other comments, questions? Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Joe Buscaino for saving the industry. In all seriousness, Mr. Krikorian, for your groundbreaking work in the Assembly that really kind of set us all on the path for being aware of how these middle-class job incentives really work. And I think anecdotally, we're seeing a tick downward in our unemployment rate, and I think that is representative in getting people back to work in the entertainment industry because of the tens of thousands of jobs that, if not well over 100, of the direct industry jobs that are in Los Angeles, getting everyone back to work. So that's got to be reflected in our unemployment rate, too, in some way. I have a question for you about musicians, because I know that during the down years, we were also losing musicians for sound and recording, films, television, sound. Are they coming? A lot of them were going to Great Britain, and productions were being sound recorded there. Have you seen an improvement in that area as well?
That we don't know yet. Yeah.
My conversations with some of the recording studios, they noticed it was very noticeable. Yeah, musicians. Yeah.
But it's more than just the musicians, because speaking on behalf of the IATSC, you can have all the musicians you want, but if there's not an engineer sitting at the console, you don't have those technicians there making sure that gets recorded, then it's just a bunch of people playing instruments, right? Not to downplay what they do; it's very important work. But nonetheless, in order to get it onto the
a lot of those were being outsourced to England, though. Those jobs.
Yeah. So it is a very complex problem with that, because you've had this migration in television away from live music, using live music, musicians on the television product, and that's been going on for a number of years. And I'll let the companies really speak to this, because they know, they'd have the better stats than I do. But for most of your television, it's either licensed music or not much more than somebody in their garage with synthesizers, right? So when we talk about the musicians, you almost have to take television out, because it's a different world now.
Features then.
Right, it's features. And as of today, there's only 2 features that I'm aware of that are actually in post, and they haven't gotten into the scoring yet. Okay. So we don't know what kind of an impact the incentive has had for the musicians, although I think it's important that we remember that productions get an additional 5% for the scoring done here in Los Angeles, or in California. I misspoke. That's already in the program. So there's already an additional incentive to use, the California musicians for feature, or for any product, but primarily.
And technically, well, in the last few years, we have not had any large productions, feature productions, because they were all shooting in other places. In this last, now that we have these incentives and it's geared towards larger film productions, we're now going to be able to see, because some of those have just gotten the incentives and are still prepping, we're now going to be able to tell if they're going to do their scoring here. I know that a couple of them are already planning on doing it. Actually, the musicians told me that. And so I believe we're going to have a better feeling for that by the end of this year or sometime in the fall, because that way we'll be at...
Chips is in, I think the only film that's gotten past that stage is Chips.
And Annabelle.
Like Chips isn't going to use.
Yeah.
That addition was in direct response to London offering an incentive for scoring being done there.
Great. Yeah, there probably won't be much Tchaikovsky in the movie Chips.
Yeah. You never know.
Well,
Chips,
yeah,
like the motorcycle guy?
Yes,
Well,
they're redoing it.
They're
It's a
redoing
comedy.
it?
It's a comedy now.
How do you redo it without Eric Estrada?
I think he has a cameo.
They do
Oh,
do
he's a
cameo.
cameo.
But
I thought he was doing Mexican telenovelas, I remember.
He looks exactly the same as he did for. I mean, exactly. He hasn't changed one single bit.
But I mean, that is an issue, and we will be looking at it, but we won't know for a little while, because like we've just discussed, we just finished the first year, and the new year doesn't start till July.
Yeah, and that's something the ITSC is very interested in, because again, we have members. Our members work in that field as well. So if the musicians aren't working, we have members who aren't working. They're impacted similarly.
Any other questions? Mr. Kokorian?
I think Chips was the last remaining 70s TV show that hadn't been converted into a movie yet, so it was about time, I say.
That's right.
A couple of things. First, on the musicians' premium, if you will, was really a big improvement, and because they had been getting killed, and so were visual effects. Everybody's targeting visual effects, and we couldn't do anything in the original incentive. So this is a big improvement on that. One question, because you mentioned, Tom Red, one of you mentioned uptick in production in the Bay Area and in San Diego, and I'm wondering if, to what extent, is that attributable to the outside the zone eligibility for that premium, or is it just the happenstance of, other things?
Well, some of that, I think, is attributed to out of zone. Now, you also look at some of the productions that are being done locally that are getting incentives, that are actually taking advantage of that uptick by shooting in places like Anaheim and San Bernardino and outside of the zone to shoot in other areas because of that incentive, which it is. So it is growing in that way.
Okay.
I'm not positive about a couple of them. I believe that one of them that is shooting in Northern California, I know would have probably been done here, but because of the incentives, they're doing it there. They're actually in Marin County.
It's the one part of the legislation I don't like.
I know.
Now that I'm wearing this
but
hat.
obviously, it's something that we needed to do because it had to
Get to
affect
gain
everyone.
statewide support.
But I will say, it's like the clip you saw from Rosewood. Rosewood is a production in Los Angeles, actually Manhattan Beach, but primarily in Los Angeles area. That goes outside of the zone, once every couple weeks, I guess it is?
A couple of days, every couple of weeks. They're supposed to be in Miami. They shoot a lot in Long Beach and San Pedro, but then they do go...
That's where Joe comes in.
See, because he's right.
They do go even more south into Anaheim and into Huntington Beach, but that is one of the productions that is incentivized.
So on that issue of statewide appeal, the one suggestion that I would make, and again, this comes to a couple of Ms. Martinez's points about gaining support and also effects on businesses and especially small businesses. From your perspective, Tom, you're seeing the impact on your members, as you should. From the assembly member for Modesto, there's not too many IA members in that district. But there are businesses in that district, family-owned businesses, that might have shut down but for the work that they're getting from production that's happening in Sacramento or in San Francisco. And if you can use your film commissions, especially, to identify those businesses that have been impacted, that's, to me, the selling point for most legislators, even more than the people who work within the industry. It's always, all those businesses, the framer, the, car rental place, the whatever, the restaurant, the neighborhood businesses that, are successful now but wouldn't have been but for this incentive. Those folks can tell the story to your legislators outside of LA better than any of us can.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because there's actually one story, the gravel.
Oh, gosh.
I can't remember where it was, but it was
in Sacramento,
It
actually.
was just outside of Sacramento.
Yeah.
And was it $20,000 worth of gravel? They needed $20,000
Gravel?
in one day.
Gravel?
Yeah, somebody wanted to
Come get it in Sun Valley. I have plenty of it. I have a gravel pit.
Yeah.
I have the biggest gravel pit in LA County is probably in my
You've
district.
got the gravel wholesaler.
Yes, I do.
No, but
Come
that
take
gravel pit, it made their month.
Yeah, it really put them over the top. It was for a production up there.
And to your point, the film liaisons across the state are supposed to be cataloging that, going out onto their main streets, asking about did they come in, what did they buy. So they're hoping to have a lot of great information, but that's been tasked to all those offices.
And is that because I remember when the issue was being debated, a lot of the Northern California legislators were holding out and supporting this, right? Because they didn't see the incentives in their districts. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, those who supported the incentives.
They think it's an LA
for
thing, or
growing.
everyone wants to hate on Los Angeles, and
Well, the strategy which was worked out here with the city and others was that we laid back and had the rest of the state argue so that they were the prime focus, the prime speakers. Because of that reason, we needed the rest of the state on board. And it's why the bumps were given for out of state and out of the region and points as well, because you needed to have the buy-in of the rest of the state to get this to go. And it's proving its success all over, which is great news.
And we were able to do, when we did present this a couple of years ago, to give a report on vendors throughout the state that were being utilized that you wouldn't even think in that area. There was a vendor that was connected to the motion picture industry, but there are a lot of them throughout the state in some form.
all right. So no more comments or questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
We hope to have you back here in a year with better stats. I just want to acknowledge Sarah Walsh, who's here from I know you have a card for the Motion Picture Association on item 4, but I don't know if you want to add anything. You're a huge support, and I'm here. Sorry we didn't call you in earlier. All right, thank you, Sarah. Let's move on to item 2. Mr. Clerk, can you please read that item into the record?
Item number 2 is a report from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to the proposed contract with Film LA for filming, permitting, coordination services in the city.
Okay, and on this issue, Mr. Wickham is here, and can I also have Mr. Audley, just in case we have any questions for you? Eva Batar? Was she supposed to? Okay. These are the 3 that I show on my agenda. In case we have any questions, who wants to start, Mr. Wickham?
Yes, John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst, and Cheryl Benares with the CLA's office as well. I'll just give a quick brief overview, and then Cheryl can run through some of the details in the contract. Basically, as we took on the discussions with Film LA on this, we had in mind a couple of key concerns. One was to make sure that in the contract at the end of the day that we were able to clarify the rules and services that Film LA provided, that we had clear reporting requirements. We wanted to make sure that there was transparency and information was available for everybody to see and understand what is happening in the contract and the work that's being done. So the language there is, provides some improvements in that area. And then we wanted to, I'm trying to read my notes. I was scribbling them here. We wanted to make sure on the question Mr. Krikorian raised about the refunds to make sure that the customers of Film LA knew how to receive their refunds and had every opportunity to receive their refunds, and that information was clarified. At your last meeting, Film LA had mentioned that they had some budgeting concerns going through on the special projects. And so we wanted to make sure that as we were drafting the contract, we had good control over costs, that we weren't putting in items in the contract that would require them to raise their fees or that were so expensive that they couldn't afford to fund them. That we had provisions in there that would be reasonable in finding resolutions to fund projects and set priorities. And really, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that Film LA was focused on permitting and doing the job of assisting the film productions and the television productions, commercial productions that come to the city. This contract is structured in a way that really all of the risk is on Film LA with regard to permitting costs and fees. So if, for example, all the city fees that are collected, if a production does not pay enough of those fees, Film LA still has to pay the city for the cost of the fees, no matter what. So we are always covered in getting reimbursed for the cost of the city on the plus side and on the negative side. Film LA is at risk on those things. So this contract really is structured in a way that is very strong for the city. It hasn't been modified too much, and so I'll have Cheryl run through some of the revisions that were made.
Cheryl Benares with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. In addition to some technical amendments that were made to the original existing contract, there were several new provisions that were added to the contract before you today. The first is that the contract now includes a section that Film LA will comply with the city's policy related to student film permit fee waiver exemptions. There's an existing agreement between the LAPD, who's the city's permit authority, and Film LA to waive fees for certain student film productions if they meet certain requirements. The second addition is that Film LA will now be required to submit their annual operating budget, which should show their projected revenues and expenditures and also show their projected amount of unclaimed refunds that they expect to have within that year. And that's something that will be transmitted to this committee for review to also see kind of what Film LA intends on how their budgeting will work for this year. The third major addition that we did was codifying a refund policy. Previously, there was no refund and notification policy within the existing contract. The contract before you today requires that any customer can submit a claim for a refund within 90 days of the production completing. If after 90 days that customer has not submitted a claim and a refund is owed, Film LA is required to provide written notification to that customer that they have a refund and are able to claim it. And from that, the date of notice, the customer will have 30 days. So this new policy will allow any entertainment industry customer who's submitted an application through Film LA up to 120 days to claim their refund. So this is brand new and something that has been provided as a courtesy to the customers. One of the last major additions was that in the contract it says that Film LA will use their best efforts to upgrade their online permitting system so that it interfaces with the city systems. I know this was a concern at the last committee meeting about sort of the upgrades to technology that are happening. So the contract now says that they would be required to provide annual reporting on sort of the upgrades that are being made to their system and how that interfaces with the city system. The committee also requested several report backs from our office. One was on the refund and notification procedure, which I just spoke about. The other was also about the accurate recording of complaints. Under the existing contract, Film LA was already required to compile all the records related to the complaints. That same section is still included in the proposed contract before you today. The only change that our office would recommend is to actually have the city's contract administrator, which is the Economic Workforce Development Department, to also provide the same data on the complaints that they receive. Film LA fields many of the complaints that come to the city, but EWDD may receive complaints through the 311 system or on their website. So in order for the city to have an accurate picture of the complaints coming in, we would recommend that EWDD also provide that same data. The last thing that our office was asked to report on is alternatives to Film LA services if a contract could not be reached with Film LA. That would require that the city either, one, engage in an RFP process to select a new vendor, or two, identify funding to start a film office within the city. Our office recommends that the committee approve the contract. In addition, our office is also recommending that EWDD be required to report quarterly on the performance of Film LA throughout the year, so that sort of the committee and council are aware of the performance under the contract, and to also submit a plan on how they plan to administer the contract. So those are.
As we were working on the contract, we saw that there had, for the last 5 years, been significant reporting requirements, but there was no obligation for that information on those reporting outcomes to come forward to council for review and consideration. So we felt it was important that there be regular reporting to the committee and to the council going forward. And so that's why we included that recommendation. In addition, with regard to the refund issue, the contract now requires a training component so that entertainment industry customers will have a training opportunity, both online and in person with Film LA staff, about how the permit process works, the financing, the funding, the refunds in particular, so that information, we just want to make sure, again, on a transparency point, that the customers know how the system works and they can take avail of everything that's available to them in the services that Film LA provides.
Mr. Ali, do you have anything to add? You just get out that we're already here.
Yeah.
Yeah, relieved, yeah.
Just that we've appreciated being the partner with the city for now 21 years and really taking and moving forward with the times, a really robust system that we inherited. We have appreciated the partnership not only with the city council but with LAPD and the contract administrator in making sure that the city served well, the film industry served well, and communities are served well. We believe strongly in all three components of our obligation. And so we're very pleased to have reached an agreement and looking forward to continuing our work with you.
Great. Are there any questions, members?
Yeah.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you. There's been a lot of progress, good, positive direction since the last time we were here on this. Couple of questions I have. I like the system for notification and about the refunds and all of that. That would apply, I guess the question that I would have, just to make sure we're understanding it the same way, that would apply to any refund obligation that would remain. There wouldn't be like regardless of amount, I suppose, you would still have to go through the notification process. Is that, because I didn't see any reference to like dollar amounts.
The proposed contract doesn't include any, I guess, refund minimum that would need to apply.
Okay, so there is no such minimum, so all refunds would be returned in the process that you have. If there's anything unclaimed, then it goes to the issue that we discussed about how will it be spent. The concern that I have on that one is we had a conversation about the things that we anticipated that it would be spent on, but the contract language doesn't seem to really limit it that way. It seems to be more suggestive and say that the refunds could be, the unclaimed refunds could be spent on pretty much anything within Film LA's authority. And then it gave as examples some of the things that we had talked about, enhancing the film permitting process and so forth. It would be my expectation, since these are amounts paid for city fees, that they would be spent in alignment with the city's priorities. And I think, in my view, the city just has to have some role in determining what those priorities are and making sure that the expenditures are in alignment with those. I think they will be. I just don't see where there's an opportunity for us, other than through the auditing process, I guess, to determine that.
The budget reporting requirement in advance of their proposed budget will include a list of the items that are intended to be, where those funds are intended to be spent.
Okay,
So you'll have, from a transparency standpoint, the opportunity to review those priorities and comment on them. They're not obligated to respond to your comments, but it would not be wise to ignore that.
Okay. No, it would not. So that budgetary disclosure part would be delineated on a line item kind of basis, so much for marketing, so much for whatever it is that it's being spent.
Exactly.
Okay, I can live with that. And then, the other thing that I just wanted to raise is it's addressed in here, the issue of connecting the systems that has been the ongoing struggle, technological and otherwise, that we've had. I understand the reason for having best efforts language, that if there isn't money, you can't do it, obviously. But I do want to get a little bit more assurance that this is going to happen, because we keep putting it in the contract and we keep getting reports back. And again, I'm not attributing any responsibility, because this is a multi-directional challenge that we have, but it isn't getting done. And it has to get done. It has to get done for the sake of, Film LA, for the sake of our departments, for the sake of our film customers. So how are we going to ensure, with language that just sort of says we'll make our best efforts, how will we make sure that we get past best efforts and to success? Because this has to happen.
My concern on that, as I was going forward, is there was no documentation over the past efforts from a year-to-year basis of what they were required to do, or what they offered to do, or what they promised to do. And so it was starting to look like a moving target, where Film LA would get things done, and yet people would say they weren't getting anything done, because the target seemed to have been moving. And so in the contract, we put in language specifically to say that there would be documentation of what the annual projects and goals are, so that we would have something to measure against. Because I was getting through the city family side, we were getting comments on both sides that work was not being done, and Film LA saying, but we've done this, 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 and this. And so I want to put that to rest, and I want to make it clear, and my approach in the contract was to make it clear. Let's have some clear reporting guidelines so that we can monitor and measure that as part of the performance of the contract going forward.
So, Madam Chair, I would just suggest, I don't think this has to be in the contract. I don't want to fiddle with the language of this. But given those reporting requirements, I would just suggest that Film LA, as well as the CLA and the relevant departments, report back to this committee on a quarterly basis until this is completed, so that we can understand where we are, what roadblocks are we still hitting, are there budgetary problems, are there bureaucratic problems, why is this not getting done?
Sure.
And then if we continue to hear the same answer that we're having, we just can't get it done every 3 months, I have a feeling that we're going to have to take other actions, but it must get done. So, and again, I'm not putting this on you, Mr. Oddly. Please don't take it that way. It's just that we all want to get this done. Everybody wants to get this done. And so I think it's just going to take some constant prodding to make sure that we're all moving towards our joint objective.
Yes,
I
we
would
absolutely
agree
want
that
that
the
contract
support in doing that would be helpful to us as well.
Great.
But I do need, on behalf of the board, to just make the statement that this was an initiative we took, recognizing the city could not, expending our own resources to do it, to make it better for the city and the film industry. This was not part of our contract requirement. It became it because we volunteered. And we want to make it successful. We want to make it happen. But sometimes I feel, and the board feel, as though instead of receiving any form of gratitude for stepping up and volunteering, even though we constantly run into challenges wherever they come from, it's been a punishment instead. And so we need to express the fact we really want to make this work, but we would like some recognition that it's an initiative we took on voluntarily and not as a contractual requirement.
Well,
Very well said.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and move with the recommendation that Mr. Kokorian just outlined, that we move and approve the CLA's recommendations and the proposed contract. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Kokorian? Hearing no objections, thank you very much. Congratulations. Finally have a contract in place. Whew. Okay, that was a big deal. That's a very big deal. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 3.
Item number 3 is the motion from Council Members Martinez and O'Farrell relative to requesting Film LA to report on their standard policy and procedures for responding to community concerns as they arise regarding filming.
Thank you very much. Do we have, Mr. Audley, you're going to report on this as well?
Yes, and I'd like to introduce Philip Sokolowski, who's my Vice President of Integrated Communications, whose department has direct responsibility for much of this work, although there are people in all departments of Film LA who are involved in resolving community concerns. He's providing you with some information out, and this is Philip Sokolowski.
Before you start, I don't know if I neglected to introduce Public Works Commissioner Kevin James, who was here earlier. A big thank you. You really helped us on the contract. I just want to acknowledge you. I'm sorry. I thought I saw you that way, on that side, and I saw it, and I looked, and you were gone. So I just wanted to make sure before we move on, thank you very much, Commissioner, for all your hard work on this contract. I appreciate it, and it's noted. Mr. Audley, go ahead.
We're going to have Mr. Sokolowski present.
Mr. Sokolowski.
Thank you.
I like that name, Sokolowski.
Thanks. It's a good Polish name. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present on this today. You know, the partnership between the City of Los Angeles and Film LA is very unique. And Film LA is very unique in that we are a private not-for-profit organization, but we have an important public sector responsibility. And of course, as everyone knows, we were set up to make it easier for film productions to happen in the city and county of Los Angeles. But one of the things that is lesser recognized is the way that we tend to do that is through deep investment in our community relations services. So if you look back to 1995 and some of the things that did not exist prior to our existence, a standardized notification program for communities, plus an e-notification component that was added in 96 and then 2006, the on-site monitoring program launched in 97, the continuance of the filming survey requirement in difficult-to-film areas, and also the maintenance of area-specific special conditions continues. Also, we have a 24/7 on-call production coordinator who can be reached at any time of the day or night to handle production-related concerns as they arise. And since 2014, we've had a dedicated 3-member outreach and education team whose job it is to work in advance of filming coming to communities to cement and establish relationships so folks know who we are and the availability of our services. If you look at our staff and the 100-member strong staff that Film LA now commits to this effort, fully half of those positions have some form of community relations responsibilities baked right in. We have a very large field workforce that does our on-set monitoring and also our community notification work. So they are intimately involved in each and everything we do. Beside that, right down to our operating structure, the board of directors has community representatives on the board. It's fully 1/3 made up of community representatives, and a 13-member community relations subcommittee that oversees the work for the outreach and education program. But the point in coming before you today was to talk about complaints handling, and you'll find in your packet 2 things. One is a booklet that is the 2015 production retrospective. That's looking at regional film production trends. And then in the front page of that booklet, you'll see a very colorful diagram showing complaints received in the City of Los Angeles jurisdiction in 2015. In the City of LA alone, Film LA fielded 1,329 requests for assistance from the community in 2015. And those requests referenced just over 2,900 different filming issues. We break down every complaint we receive by the issue type, whether it be parking, potential loss of business, safety-related concern, etc. And so on the front and back of that document, you will see the types of complaints we received by the frequency of mention, and a...
The insert you're talking about?
Yes, exactly, the colorful graphic. And then also a breakdown of the city to show you where those complaints originate and what the top issues and concerns referenced by constituents are in each district. What's really important to know about the complaints that Film LA receives and fields on the city's behalf is that they're relatively infrequent. On any given day of the year in Los Angeles, there are 120 different film productions taking place simultaneously. And it takes 26 shoot days for us to receive one call of complaint into the office. That's kind of amazing. When you think about every shoot day having a potential neighborhood impact, a notification radius of at least 500 feet going out to the surrounding community, that so few people are inconvenienced as much as to contact our office for assistance is quite a remarkable thing. Regional film production increased 1.3% in 2015 to 289 shoot days, but complaints actually declined a little bit during that period. In 2014, we had 25 days to get one complaint. In 2015, it was 26. As you can see from the chart, the far and away the biggest concern about filming in Los Angeles area communities is the temporary loss of street parking. 1 in 4 people who reach out to our office have a concern about that. The number 2 reported concern is apparent filming frequency. Number 3, extended filming hours, and numbers 4 and 5 represent a tie between the loss of business and also notification-related concerns. What those numbers don't reveal is the enormous amount of work that goes into play to making sure that we've prevented complaints on the front end. The notification process that gives community members an opportunity to voice their concerns before the permit is finalized, the survey process that we have in place, both of those are aimed at getting input in related to filming in a way that can be crafted into the permit and not create an inconvenience once production starts. And the truth is that even if these numbers were to double, that might not be such a bad thing for filming in Los Angeles, because we want the community to be contacting us, making ample use of our services, and we wouldn't be able to do that if folks didn't know about our availability and willingness to respond on that 24/7 basis. How are we getting the word out to make sure that people know who they can call? We've, a couple of years ago, started sponsoring movie nights in the park. These are total fair weather contacts. Filming's not coming to anyone's community, just some free films. And they can visit with our staff while they're watching a film with their families in a place close to them. We co-sponsored 45 such movie nights in 2015, and we have 25 of them scheduled already for here in 2016. The first will start this month. And in addition to that, you'll see in your packet, our outreach and education staff go out and attend community meetings. So we're attending meetings of neighborhood councils, homeowners associations, BIDs, other groups to present on the availability of our services, filming issues in the area, and establish those relationships that we'll need when filming happens to come to call. So that is essentially the nuts and bolts of our program. I would entertain any questions about how we're handling outreach and education or specific requests that you'd like to see in future complaints-related reports brought to this committee.
Members, are there any questions? Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you. Thank you for this comprehensive report. I love the breakdown per council districts. Very helpful. And what's consistent with the type of complaints are parking concerns. So my question has to, it relates to parking. And some of the complaints that we get, and by the way, I welcome all the filming down to San Pedro, Wilmington. You can, you'll feel that you're in a number of East Coast cities just 20 minutes away from here. So the type or quality of parking signs, a lot of folks feel that they're not official, no parking signs. And secondly, the issues we get are the timing of when those parking signs are posted. I don't know if it's consistent with my colleagues.
It's Mr. O'Farrell's motion.
Yes, where is
okay. Sorry, I'm just.
Is DOT here? They're
Just
here, right?
Can we take this item together? I'm not, I'll just wait for item 4. Thank you.
That's exactly what we're going to get into, yeah. It's Mr. O'Farrell's motion.
Yeah, so.
Any other questions?
Sorry,
on this
I jumped up. No, it's okay.
It's okay to get excited. Mr. Rue.
I just want to really thank you guys, thank Film LA and thank Paul for the great discussion that we had. And Joe, I would love to, as the #1 issues district, I'd love to make sure a lot of the filming moves down to San Pedro. Spread the love. No, I think this is a great comprehensive analysis, and I love the fact that you're moving more towards a GIS model, which you hope will be implemented, but hopefully next year, so we could get more in-depth analysis. And I know this issue is difficult, especially in my district, and it's unfortunate that the #1, even though we all support film and we all support entertainment, and Council District 4 has probably the most people from the entertainment industry living in the district, it's sometimes kind of funny how the #1 complainers are actually from the film industry themselves.
The ironies abound.
And we totally appreciate the various studios and production companies that help us help educate their employees as well. But I'm very excited about the different things we talked about, and your willingness to work with us, work with my office to figure out if we could come up with even more community-centric, community-friendly solutions. So I just wanted to mention that, and this is hopefully, I mean, with everything that even Councilman Paul Krikorian is asking for about quarterly updates, because everything's all kind of interrelated, and I'm really looking forward to the parking agenda item. That's what we're going to talk about next. But, and of course, the coordination of services from the city family, because sometimes it's beyond your control as well. And the city family is working to make sure that we integrate our data sets as well. So we make sure that the parking permits go up, or no parking signs go up in the right streets, and coordinate that with you as well. So, so I just want to state that. Thank you.
If I might, Madam
Sure.
Chairman, I just wanted to thank, of all the council districts, we work closely with your field staff, and they're terrific partners for us, both in making things happen, but in helping us to resolve issues. And the other group that we really need to thank tremendously is LAPD. You're unique in our jurisdictions and really in the world of filming, and having police officers dedicated to helping out with filming, both in resolving complaints and holding the film industry accountable, which sustains a neighborhood. And so we're really grateful for the level of support we receive from that department in our partnership with them as well.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve this item. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. O'Farrell? See no objections, this motion passes. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to item 4, which is why everybody's here. So, Mr. Clerk, can you please read item 4 into the record?
Item number 4 is a motion from Council Members O'Farrell and Krikorian relative to the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, with the assistance of Film LA, reporting on the existing process for permitting and producing no parking signs for film productions.
Okay, so we have someone from DOT. Anyone else? Any other departments? That's it?
They sent you all alone.
I know.
With no backing?
No backing. So thank you, council members, for having me speak here today. My name is Nader Asmar. I'm a senior engineer with DOT. So I've sort of done a lot of research in the last couple of days on this matter. Selwyn Hollins, who is our assistant general manager, left the department recently, so he's been sort of the man leading this effort. So I've been trying to get up to speed.
Did he retire or you didn't leave?
He left to the Office of Finance.
Oh,
he's an assistant general manager over there.
And who's replaced him? You?
Right now, another assistant general manager is taking his place temporarily, Bridget Smith. I'm not his replacement as of right now. But I've learned a lot about this matter. I brought the dreaded sign here with me, the one that's in the motion, about 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I learned that one of the problems we had was we didn't have the right ability to change the hours on these signs. We were able to change the days very easily, but one of the problems we had was the start time and the end time. They didn't match what the filming activities were. So we have a website called Teams that Film LA uses to go in, and they have a drop-down list of options. There's only like 11 options on there, and they don't always match the activities of the filming, so they pick the best available option. So what I want to do is customize the signs, and we've already bought this new machine. I saw it this morning that allows us to change the hours custom to the hours that Film LA wants, and that should solve a lot of the problem. The other thing that Selwyn was working on was hiring 3 additional maintenance laborers to put up additional signs. So I talked to our personnel just this morning, and it looks like we'll be able to hire those people probably within the next 6 to 8 weeks. There's a bulletin going out on Friday, I believe, on the website for a position called vocational worker that eventually promotes to maintenance labor. And once we get those 3 bodies on board, we'll be able to post a lot more of the customized signs that hopefully would match what Film LA wants on the streets. So I'm hoping that will solve the problem. There is a little bit of a problem with the stickers, but we're working on that right now. But I think within the next 2 to 3 months, we should see a huge improvement.
Okay, Mr. O'Farrell, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Asmar. So you just inherited this in recent days.
Yes.
When I've been working on this, and my office has been working on this since my first few weeks, going back 2 years and 10 months. And so this is not any frustration expressed to you personally at all, but it boggles the mind why we had to get a new machine just to change signage on the signs that are posted for film shoots. I mean, look at this. 14 out of the 15 council districts, the number one complaint was parking, inconveniences, etc. So I think the city has been derelict in our response when everyone else has had all hands on deck to accommodate filming and lessen the inconveniences in our neighborhoods. I mean, the number one complaint we get is definitely parking inconveniences. And I don't want to wait another 6 weeks. I want these signs to go up tomorrow if we have the technical ability, because you have the same amount of individuals who post the signs. So let's get cracking on this and make it happen. You just kind of explained, the challenges that you have, but if you feel that you have everything in place, with the exception of you need additional professionals to post the signs, that's something else. But I can't imagine why it took almost 3 years to get the machine and get the technical capabilities to post a foam core sign with numbers on it when it's 2016. So do you have anything to respond to that? I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, and you're not, it's not your fault, but it's a great source of frustration when we're losing the PR battle in some of our neighborhoods because of the frequency in filming and the parking difficulties, when we could be doing so much more as a city to address those concerns before they ever happen. That's my frustration.
I completely understand your frustration, and I can't speak to why that happened, but my aim is to fix it right now as much as
That's great, but can I get a commitment from you that we won't wait 6 or 8 weeks? I mean, we have film shoots that get noticed all the time. If we have the machine that can crank out the right hours of operation, then those same individuals can post the right signage. Am I right?
You're right.
And so we're looking at, are we looking at something, variations beyond 11 to 7 and 7 to 3? We're able to, with this,
Yes.
upgrade that you mentioned. Here's the frustration. Sometimes there will be a commercial shoot, and they'll just film for 2 hours from 7 to 9, and they're done for the day. But the no parking from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. stays all day long, and the community's confused and they're inconvenienced needlessly.
Right.
Now, when those productions call our office or we get complaints, we will tell the productions, the people on the ground, just to turn the signs around, or we'll do it ourselves. I've been known to have wire clippers myself and take signs down, and we shouldn't have to do that. It's probably a misdemeanor, but we do what we can to help our constituents.
And I would do the same thing if I could.
And also, can the signs have QR codes, since everyone has the smartphone capability? So a constituent can look at it, just do the QR code, and say, oh, okay, well, they're done at 12 noon. Why is it no parking until 10 p.m.? And then they can then call Film LA, and Film LA can get involved. Well, how about the QR codes?
I asked about that as well. That's a little bit more complicated issue because apparently they move signs from one location to another sometimes within the same day. So the QR codes would have to be programmed the right way and would be tied to that specific location. That would require a little bit more effort, I think, than the sticker issue that we're at right now. But
we should give it maximum effort because this is our number one signature industry, and we want to increase filming in our neighborhoods. So without us demonstrating everything we can possibly do to lessen the inconveniences, we're not doing enough.
Yeah, and I'd like to maybe get a little bit more information on the QR code idea that you have and pursue that further, because I think I understand the issue, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'd like to talk to you about it.
That'd be great. And I'm not 100% sure either, but it seems to me that you could develop a QR code technically, get it produced the image and then mass produce it, put it on a sticker, and slap it on the sign. It seems like that technology would exist now. I don't know for sure, but let's look into that.
Do we need to buy another machine?
Seriously, we'll pull our discretionary funds to get you the machine.
Well, Mr. O'Farrell, I like.
Okay, all right.
Yes, if the filming will come to CD6, I'm happy
There
to
you
pay
go.
for the machine.
There you go.
So my only concern, sir, is that you're not the main person, and I appreciate that you're here. But since we don't have anyone who's going to be we don't know the person who's going to be responsible for this. I just I have a bit of trust issues of how we're going to move forward and make sure that this gets done. So if you want to give clear direction about what you expect, can we make you in charge today? Can we do that? Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the fact that we didn't know that the person who was overseeing this is gone to a different department, and so now we're in limbo. I feel like we're a bit in limbo.
So is there going to be a replacement for
Jane
someone,
Cohen
or,
is here.
you know?
She's a woman in charge.
Hi, Councilman.
How are you?
To Nader, to add on to what Nader was saying, sorry, Jennifer Cohen, LADOT, there has been some reorganization and people moving around. And so with Selwyn's departure, some of these things are shifting, but he is our go-to man.
Oh,
he will take care of it, and I will follow up with.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's great. So now we have someone in charge, and now we can move on with when we're going to actually start printing and posting and then taking them down. Printing and posting.
Yeah, seriously. So, to the Madam Chair's point, you can meet it with my office, with whomever. We're ready to just push and pull whatever levers we need to make this happen in the immediate. Yeah, I think 2 years and 10 months is long enough to wait to upgrade the posting of signs.
We agree.
I think our industry needs it badly, and our constituents. It'll remove some of the confusion for these location shoots, and I think it's really critical.
Yeah.
Simple little thing the city can do to help things out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
You can
I have
breathe
a
now.
question. I have a question. Mr. O'Farrell is bringing sort of new technology ideas. I'm a little bit more old school. Tell me again why we can't just put a sticker on these signs? Is there some reason that instead of having a sign printing shop printing these, can you not just have the equivalent of a bumper sticker that you slap onto the existing signs that says
Have the range.
what time it is?
The range of hours.
Huh?
The range of hours.
Yeah, you have a 7 a.m. sticker, you have an 8 a.m. sticker, you have a 9 a.m. sticker, and you put on the appropriate sticker onto the existing signs. I don't know why that is complicated to do. And I'm assuming that it's an enforcement issue, that it may not be, that it may be subject to abuse or something. But, if I buy something at Marshall's, it takes me an hour and a half to get all the shreds of that price tag off of the thing. So, can we not make the sticker out of the same stuff so it's not changeable?
Well, there's a few issues with it. They stock a bunch of different signs like that, like hundreds of different types, based on the hours and the days of the week. There's all kinds of different wording that go on them, and they actually customize them with stickers, as you said, in the shop before they take them out.
Oh,
so they have drawers full of
there
stickers.
you go.
They do that. The other thing is some of the stickers that they've been using are not really of good quality. They actually fade in the sun after a short time, and they run in the rain. So the new stickers they have are much better quality. They don't tear very easily, just like you said.
Okay.
And that's the new stickers we're putting on are much better than what we've had before. But they do have to be customized in the sign shop before they go out for the specific shoot.
But why? Why don't you just print up 10,000 stickers that say 9 p.m.?
They do.
And then take those off the 9 p.m. shelf and put them on this sign. We don't have to print them custom. We just have to get them done in volume, stock them, and put them on to customize the sign by slapping on the stickers.
That's exactly what they do. But, some of these film shoots have hundreds of signs, and just for that one.
Yeah, I know, but okay.
It just takes some manpower to put them on the sign. That's all.
All right. Well, okay. Then we're on the same page.
Couldn't you also give them give the stickers to the production company and say? But no, I get that. You'd have to.
No, then.
Yeah, never mind.
Life is so confusing.
Never mind. But anyways, simplified. I mean, we can do this.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Is this the new sign?
That's just the standard.
It's just a
There's no-
standard
Right,
sign.
yeah. Are you done, Mr. Kokorian? Oh. Yeah, quick question. Actually, on that low-tech mode, we could do it like PPDs. Why do you even have to have stickers? Why can't you just write it with the pen and put one of those clear stickers on top? Because that's what you do with the PPDs, right? When you go apply.
The visitor permit.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. But in that same low-tech technology that Councilman Krikorian is presenting, why not just? Why not just? Yeah.
We've had some problems with the Sharpies, as you'll recall.
Okay. Probably illegible writing, I guess, right? But also, what's the current protocol on the how many days or how much before do you have to put up the signs, or are you required to put up the signs?
I believe it's like 48 hours.
48 hours
right?
at that time.
So, and is there any kind of tracking mechanism on? Do you guys know about all the any mistakes that we made, or when it doesn't go up? Because sometimes we get complaints from the community saying that they parked there and then the sign went up, and there's no way to kind of track that or tell, or do you have that mechanism?
We do have that system called Teams that tracks all these temporary no parking, and we can research. If somebody complains, we can look on there and see if it was actually requested and when they were posted. So
and when something like that happens, are you guys able to respond immediately, or what's the response time?
You mean if there's a missing restriction or something?
Yeah, wrong plaque, wrong time, wrong sign, wrong street. I mean, obviously, if it was put on too late, there's nothing you can do about that. But then if it's there's some mistake.
Yeah, they'll go out and fix it right away as soon as they're made aware of it.
Okay. I'll make sure. Do you guys have I'll make sure we follow up with my staff, because I know we had a huge contentious issue which actually hurt the filming industry because the DOT put the signs on the wrong street. And that created, there was already tension there to begin with, and it just created extra tension. So we just want to make sure that we're able to respond to that immediately. Okay, but I am very open to the low-tech solutions. I'm trying to see how we could do this. I could have sworn I saw signs with actual dates on it, too. Is that?
Not days of the week, but actual dates.
Yeah, like, 5/16, 5/17.
I don't think I've seen those myself. Not to say they don't exist, but
maybe it was a
neighbor who did that with a Sharpie.
Maybe, I don't know, or maybe I'm getting it mixed up with the notifications.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much and for being here. So, Mr. O'Farrell, would you like to make a motion on this? To go ahead and move to approve your motion.
Let's approve the motion definitely with a sense of urgency to utilize the upgraded technology that Mr. Asmar mentioned with the new machine, so that we move forward with the proper postings in the immediate. And I don't know how to necessarily word that. How do you make it sound like it's tomorrow?
Today.
What do you think is reasonable? Let me just ask you, what do you think is reasonable, Mr. Asmar?
Well, just because of the staffing issues, the technology is there. We have the machine and everything. It's just the people. I would say, based on what I heard today, 6 weeks.
We're back to the 6 weeks thing. It does make sense to me.
Because when we hire them, they still have to go through medical and all that before we can actually get them on board.
But can't existing staff slap on the program the right time or slap on the sticker?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I just don't think 6 weeks is acceptable. I have every right to be impatient after 2 years and 10 months. We all do.
Sure.
2 weeks.
All right.
Within 2 weeks. Is that reasonable, colleagues?
Sure.
Within 2 weeks.
Okay. I'll second your motion. All right. Seeing no objection, let's move forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye. The next, Mr. Clerk, let's take on. I'm sorry, we have a card for item 4. I missed you again, Sarah. I'm sorry. Oh, please don't be hurt. Look at all the how much fun we're having today. Look at how much fun we're having today.
Thank you so much.
Sarah Walsh from the Motion Picture Association, welcome on item 4.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I just wanted to come here and echo Councilmember O'Farrell's frustrations on this project. As he said, we've been working on this for over 2 years. It is a huge issue for our companies when we have to use the no parking anytime signs in the neighborhoods, and then the production leaves, and it's hours and hours before the signs can be taken down. It really is a source of frustration, not only for us, not only for the neighbors and businesses, and it doesn't help our cause when we're out filming in the city streets and in some of these neighborhoods where there is quite a bit of filming. And there has never been a more urgent time to get this done. As you've heard, we have lots of production coming back to the city. It's a great time to be filming in Los Angeles, but if we can't fix this issue for our neighborhoods, they're going to burn out really quickly on us. And as you heard from Film LA, it's the #1 source of complaints already. And so it's an issue that's not going to go away without a resolution. And it's not our intent to overburden the neighbors either. We would love to be in and out on whatever the time frame is that's listed on the sign, so the neighbors have some assurances as to when they can get their car back onto the street, or a business knows the production truck is going to be out from in front of their restaurant at 6 p.m. or whatever time that is. So it's a source of frustration for us too. We really, really want to get this accomplished. We took a tour of the DOT sign shop in July of 2015. They had the machine, one of the machines, at the sign shop. So we really want to make sure that this happens, and the MPAA and our other partners in the film community are ready to do whatever you need us to do to make this work. So I thank you for your leadership, and I urge the council to move forward with this ASAP.
Thank you, Sarah. 2 weeks, you heard us, 2 weeks. Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for not calling you earlier. Okay, seeing no objection on this item, we're going to move forward. Mr. Clerk, we're going to go ahead and move item 5 and 6 together for approval. Are there any objections? So we approve the reports for items 5 and 6. Can I get a second? Second. Okay, Mr. Krikorian, so both items 5 and 6 move forward. We're going to move on to item 7. Mr. Clerk, can you read that item into the record?
Item number 7 are reports from the Bureau of Street Services and the Los Angeles Food Policy Council relative to requiring farmers markets in the city to accept electronics benefits transfer cards.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have someone here from Bureau of Street Services. Is that you, sir?
Good afternoon, Gary Harris.
Hold on for just a second. We also have members of the City Attorney's Office.
Yes.
That be you?
Yes.
Is there someone here from the Food Policy Council? Yes. That's you. Okay, great. So we have all of our folks here. So do you want to start us off?
Sure. Gary Harris, Bureau of Street Services. In response to the request, the Bureau has prepared a report regarding the special events program that began in 2009 with the enactment of a new ordinance, Section 4120 of our municipal code, that gave the Bureau of Street Services through Public Works the ability to impose permits and special conditions on all special events in the public right-of-way, including farmers markets. To date, we have 23 farmers markets operating under permits from street services in the public right-of-way. One of the authorities that we were given in the original ordinance was the ability to add any conditions that the board or the city desire to be a part of the permitting process. So we currently have the ability to add a requirement to our existing permit to require all farmers markets that operate upon property under the jurisdiction of Public Works to require them to have the acceptance of EBT as a part of our permitting process. And we have put forth a report asking for council's direction for us to do so by adopting the report that we've submitted, and we will make this effective immediately with the renewal of our permits, which should begin in July. The majority of our permits will expire at that point. But we would ask for the council's authority to extend the imposition of this requirement for 6 months to allow those markets to come into compliance, since it's a new requirement. We would require it for the new permit, but giving them some reasonable time to do what they need to do to come in compliance with what is a new provision that they weren't going to be made aware of until we get this act, hopefully this month, from council. So it might be difficult for some markets to do it immediately. However, we will make it a requirement of the new permit just extending the compliance time to give them the opportunity to come into voluntary compliance with this new directive.
Did you want to add anything?
Just to clarify that as to the Bureau of Street Services, comment, that extends to public properties at farmers markets and not to those on private property. That would require a separate mechanism, a separate permit condition through the Department of...
So we would have to create two different types of permits?
There currently are two different types.
So right now we currently have 23 farmers markets in the public right-of-way, correct?
According to Street Services.
Okay, and how many do we have in private property?
Building and Safety would need to clarify that.
Good afternoon, Frank Bush, Building and Safety.
You need a mic. You need to speak into the mic or else you're not being recorded.
Frank Bush from Building and Safety. Good afternoon. There's approximately 35 farmers markets on private properties that we have special event permits for. And we would, if we would work with the city attorney's office to have language that would require the EBT to be accepted by there, and we would do the same and notify everybody when they get a permit, renew the permits, that they're going to have to comply with that.
Okay. So they'd be doing it for both. You just want to make the distinction between public and private farmers markets.
Correct. It would require the two different permit conditions for the two different types of permits.
Got it. Did you want to add anything?
Yes. Aisha Seiler from LA Food Policy Council. I'm excited that we are actually looking at both private and public rights of way. So that's exciting for us. We actually have about 56 markets in our list that we've come up with that are on private and public property. So it's close to 58. So probably we're missing a couple. But basically, I just wanted to reiterate from my last presentation or my last public speaking was that this is very feasible. The machines are provided and state funded free by the California Department of Social Services. USDA Food and Nutrition Service will actually be here on May 17th here at City Hall on South Lawn, signing up farmer market managers in under 2 hours. This process usually takes about 30 to 45 days. So we're basically here to say we are completely in support, and there really is no real or true barrier in getting EBT at the farmers markets. There is additional purchasing of scrip, which is what you would pay to use to buy your food at the farmers markets, but that's actually also grant funded by Ecology Center, has money to provide that access to farmers markets, and they will also be on site here May 17th. And you have a flyer in front of you that we have created with a bunch of our partners. At 11 a.m. there will also be a program where the mayor will be 11 to 11:30, and I invite you all to come and speak. I know it is during council, but we welcome you all. Actually, Councilman Krikorian, your market, Toluca Lake, Rich Armas is a market manager for you. He will be coming down and he will speak also during the program, and he'll be signing up that day to get his market on to include EBT.
That's Mr. Bruce. I have
which one are you referring to? What flyer are you referring to?
This one?
Yes, there's 3 flyers actually. 2 flyers. One is the first one.
But the invitation you just announced.
Yeah, that's May 17th. It's that flyer.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
And then, okay, sorry. I'm sorry why I got that confused, but.
I just didn't want him to think I was being territorial.
Because some of us are very territorial.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Speaking for myself.
But you guys are all welcome. Council members, please come and hop out during council if you wanted to say a few
It's the one
words.
right outside, right?
Yeah, right outside council chambers. And if you have any additional questions regarding markets in your district, we have that information, and I'd be happy to talk to your staff about that.
I'm starting one in Van Nuys. I think it's kicked off. So a couple of years ago, it started. It didn't go very well. It wasn't really a farmer's market. It became kind of like a flea market and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
In this sort of like this civic center in the right behind Van Nuys City Hall. There's a gentleman that I was working with. I'm not sure if he's on your list or not, or how successful the farmers market was, but he was trying to started up again, and he was having a number of issues. So I don't know if he's on your list or not, but he would be someone that
I'd love to
put you in
connect.
touch with.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
I have a quick question for the Bureau. How are you envisioning the transition of notifying existing and new farmers market, managers of what the new requirement's going to be? What does the transition period look like?
Actually, we think it'll be relatively painless, as explained. That we are going to have the resources available here at City Hall to help them.
Okay.
Once this hearing is completed, and hopefully this is approved today, we do plan to give them a preliminary notice that this will be going to council, so that they'll be aware that is coming up, and hopefully they'll take advantage of the opportunity they'll have to come right here and get assistance in applying for the necessary items to begin an EBT program at their markets. And again, we want to work closely with the Food Council to provide further outreach to the managers as time progresses, to any that have any problems or challenges in doing it. But from what has been described to us, it's not a difficult process, and most of them have already been through. All of our markets are certified farmers markets, so they've already been through the process to become certified. So this additional requirement will not be a difficult one for them.
Okay. And all you're asking for is an additional 6 months?
Well, we wanted to give some reasonable compliance time in case somebody has a problem. It does not have to be 6 months. We just pick that figure. But if you think it's more reasonable that it's 90 days or some other period, we would be happy with that. We just think that telling them that by July 1 they just have to be in compliance might be a little unreasonable.
Yeah, I agree. And are there any existing ordinances that need to be amended, or a new ordinance that needs to be prepared to implement the Bureau of Street Services recommendations on that front? What do we need to do?
As to street services, I guess it's somewhat optional. There is an opportunity, if the council desires and the committee desires, to amend Municipal Code Section 4120 covering special event permits. A subsection J could be added to make it clear of the EBT requirement, or it could be done as a permit condition. It's really in your discretion, but that is available to.
So we should do that. I just want to be clear.
Okay.
So if we all agree, that can be added as well. That occurred to me just now. Did you have something, Mr. Bush?
We would need the direction from the committee to work with the city attorney's office to write the ordinance to make the changes in ours as well.
I'm sorry. Say that again?
Building and safety, we would need direction from the committee to work with the city attorney, and we would put language, and once the ordinance is approved, we'll be notifying everybody, the people we have permits for now, that it's coming into play.
Okay.
And I wanted to clarify for street services, as long as this is approved, are you still okay with us moving forward with a permit condition pending
Sure.
the ordinance from the city attorney?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Are there any other questions, Mr. O'Farrell?
Madam Chair, I have a question to Mr. Bush. So how often are farmers market permits renewed on private property? Is it the same for every farmers market?
Well, it depends on, when they get started, and, they're issued annually for the most
Okay, so
part.
it's every
and
year, though.
Yeah. But you could have one that starts in the middle of the year, or then it would
It's
start.
1 year from the start?
Yes.
Okay, so it's annual. So that'll be a fairly quick incorporation of requiring EBT. And then the last thing I want to say is I'm not sure what the funding is for market match, but I'm pushing market match in all of my farmers markets too. And I don't think we can require that by ordinance because the funding isn't the same every year necessarily. But that's just something that we should encourage all of our farmers markets to take advantage of when the state funding is there. And I have a feeling it's not fully taken advantage of. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
If I can. Is there a similar program for county parks? No? The reason why I ask Watts is we have an incredible farmers market in partnership with Kaiser Permanente in my office. But I'm wondering if they are allowed the opportunity. It's at the Watkins County Park, which is right on the border.
Are you saying, is it required for all farmers markets in the county too?
County, yes, or at least similar
It's
proposal.
not required for county farmers markets, but this May 17th event is also open to everyone in the county. But that's something to definitely look at in regards to, yeah.
So you have one at a Kaiser in your district?
County Park.
Oh.
Kaiser's in Watts, and then across the street is the county park.
Oh, because in my district, Kaiser Permanente in Panorama City has its own farmers market.
And they have EBT.
Yeah.
Kaiser's really good about the farmers markets. To my knowledge, all the farmers markets on Kaiser facilities
Correct.
are certified and are accept EBT, CalFresh.
Yeah. Same here. Okay, so seeing no further questions, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the Bureau of Street Services recommendations to include the acceptance of EBT cards as a permit condition for all farmers markets on public right-of-ways, and requires these farmers markets to obtain food and nutrition services number from the USDA that would allow them to accept EBT, and also work on the help me with the language on the changing the requirement on section 4120.
Yes. The language would be something akin to EBT for certified farmers market as a separate enumerated requirement.
Great. And this is also should include private farmers markets as well.
That cannot be.
Be part of this motion?
It can be in the motion, but it won't be reflected in 4120.
Okay.
That's the instruction that
Great.
Department of Building and Safety requested.
Okay. And also instruct the Bureau of Street Services and ITA to report back on the feasibility and the cost of receiving complaints through the My LA 311 system. And instruct the city attorney to amend the ordinances and prepare the new ordinances if necessary regarding the Bureau of Street Services recommendations. Can I get a second?
And amended to add.
And amended to add
Yeah.
the private property,
Directing city attorney to work with.
directing the safety to draft the ordinances to also include farmers markets on private property. It's been a long day. Can I get a second? Mr. Ru will second it, and I have cards, so thank you very much. I have cards on this item. The first speaker is Eric Ayres, Adriana Alcaraz, and Jackie Rivera Coase. Hope I pronounced. Adriana had to leave.
I'll take her time. Just joking.
You're Eric?
Yes.
Okay, 1 minute?
Yes. My name is Eric Ayres. I'm with the Los Angeles Community Action Network, just speaking in great support for this. I think what seems like a bureaucratic procedural thing, I think we all realize is going to have immense impact. In areas that we work in, Skid Row and South LA, there's tons of disparities, health disparities, and it's very hard to build brick and mortar grocery stores, let alone ones that provide fresh fruit and produce. So this is a no-brainer. We think that we're trying to remove every barrier. We're not trying to make this prohibitive for any market, so the time helps. We also have a lot of agencies and organizations to help with tech assistance and things like that to really eliminate this. I think it's a win-win for everybody, including the vendors. Poor people live in every district, so this benefits everyone. Just to answer a question, if I could refer to one, there is a law that requires unincorporated areas of the county to have farmers markets accept EBT. We're working on it, but I think this is a great leadership. I will set an example because there are farmers markets throughout the county. So I think if we can get this started, we can move on to help other farmers markets in the areas to help get health disparities addressed via fresh and healthy organic food, and we are in great support of Market Match, so that's the next thing we're going to work on next. Thank you.
Great. Nice to be on the same side. I don't forget faces or names. Jackie Rivera Kraus, is that how you pronounce it?
Got it. Hi, I'm Jackie Rivera Kraus from Sustainable Economic Enterprises of Los Angeles, CLA. We operate 7 farmers markets in the city of LA, ranging from South Los Angeles, including the Watts Healthy Farmers Market in Councilmember Buscaina's district, to the very large, long-time, 25-year Hollywood Farmers Market in Councilmember O'Farrell's district, as well as others. We're very much in great support. All of our markets accept CalFresh EBT benefits, and we've seen nothing but tremendous results from our markets. It's helped farmers, it's helped vendors that are starting out, and it's definitely helped our low-income individuals that we're serving at the markets through many different places in Los Angeles. So again, very, very much in support of this.
Great. Thank you very much all for your support on this issue. It's great work. So there's a motion on the floor, so if there are no objections, seeing none, motion passes. Let's move on to item 8. And that's our last item for the day. So item 8, Mr. Clerk, can you please read it into the record?
Item 8 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Bureau of Contract Administration's request for authority to transfer funds between accounts to purchase vehicles and to provide additional funds to contract with community-based organizations to perform community outreach and other services in order to implement the minimum wage and wage theft program for fiscal year 2015-16.
Is Mr. Hirano here? You're here on behalf of Mr.
No, CAO, sorry.
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. So I was expecting Mr. Raymer, but he's not here, so I was told you were going to speak on him instead of him.
Hi, I'm David Hirano in the Office of the CAO, and Selena Kuhn from our office is prepared to provide a report for you. And
Okay.
the Bureau sent Kimberly as well to represent the Bureau. Okay.
Good afternoon, Selena Kuhn with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. Our office has been working closely with the Bureau of Contract Administration to address any resource needs that are needed for the Bureau to implement the minimum wage and wage theft program. Before you is a request from our office on behalf of the Bureau, to transfer funds in the Bureau's budget accounts in order to support the implementation of the minimum wage and wage theft program. Sufficient salary savings is available in this Bureau's account to purchase vehicles for their staff to use in conducting site visitations. Funding of $195 is requested to transfer from the Bureau's salary accounts to the General Services Fleet Services Division. And in addition, additional funds are requested in a transfer of funds from the printing and binding account is requested to be transferred to perform additional outreach and contracting services, to provide support services and also local advertising. So in support of the Bureau's effort to implement the minimum wage and wage theft program, our office is recommending that this committee approve the transfer request and to authorize the controller to transfer $195,000 in salary savings to the General Services Department to pay for the purchase of 6 vehicles for the staff to use in conducting site visitations. We are also requesting that this committee authorize the controller to transfer $85,000 from the printing and binding account to the contractual services account and to the office and administrative accounts, increasing these accounts by $26,000 and $59,000 respectively. This will provide additional funds to contract with community-based organizations and to educate the community about the minimum wage laws that will take effect on July 1st. And we also recommend that this committee authorize this office or designate to make any technical adjustments. If you have any questions, please let me know.
So are you confident that the businesses will be informed and ready for the salary changes starting July 1st?
The Bureau has been conducting outreach. Kimberly Fitzpatrick from the Bureau of Contract Administration could give you a little bit of background of what they've done to outreach to the public.
Good afternoon. As Selena said, I'm Kimberly Fitzpatrick with the Bureau of Contract Administration. We are less than 2 months from the new wage increase, so we have been ramping up our efforts to get the word out to businesses and employee communities throughout the city. The transfer that was discussed this afternoon will enable us to do that through a couple of mechanisms. One is through a media campaign that will utilize newspaper, digital, as well as radio ads in a variety of languages to reach communities throughout our city. And then the balance of the transfer discussed today will be used for the community outreach contract, which will utilize organizations and consultants who have expertise in reaching employee and business groups throughout the city. So we're sort of taking a multi-pronged approach to our outreach using media as well as organizations on the ground. We're also going to be rolling out a campaign using posters as well as training council district and mayor staff so that they're able to inform constituents that they come in contact with. So our efforts have been aimed at using a variety of different methods to get the word out. We are going to be working in high gear over the next couple months to ensure that we do reach as many people as possible.
Can you walk us through the complaint process? If someone lodges a complaint July 2nd, what does that look like?
Well, the complaints will go only as far back as July 1st because our authority will be to enforce the city's minimum wage. So when a complaint comes in, it can be either anonymous or filed with a specific name and identification. We will contact the complainant whenever possible to find out as much basic information up front as possible. So there will be an initial contact. We're going to be making every effort to respond as quickly as possible. And then we will do a verification to see if the complaint has merit. We want to make sure that we're not being arbitrary in the complaints that we do follow up on. We want to make sure that they do have merit, and we will contact the business, and then we will conduct a full investigation, looking at payrolls, conducting interviews, and looking at time cards, and whatever other supporting documentation will help us conclude whether there was a violation. There's also an aspect of a penalty assessment. So that will be part of the complaint investigation process as well, and we'll be working with the businesses and the complainant to find a resolution that's equitable.
And how many investigators do you currently have?
Well, we're still in the process of going through the budget procedures, of course, for the next fiscal year. We currently have 5 positions staffed. One is a management position, and then 4 analyst positions. We are looking forward to adding significantly to that staff because we fully expect.
So you have a budget request in?
Yes.
For how many additional positions?
In 2016-17, they're provided with 12 additional staff at 10 months funding. So
How many?
12 additional staff.
12 additional
Yeah.
staff, 12 in addition to the 5 that you currently have?
So that'll be 17, and then they'll be provided with another 5 staff at 6 months funding. So it's going to be phased-in approach.
So instead of using your salary savings for vehicles, have you thought about perhaps using it to hire additional staff?
We have talked with the borough regarding how much staff they'll need starting July 1st. But since it's a new program and it's really unknown of what the workload will be like, we're.
But don't we have a pretty large car pool? Why do you need to buy new vehicles? How much is each one?
They're requesting to purchase like Prius and Volts because the site investigators, the staff will be going out to these companies, employers, and if the staff are using pool vehicles, then it's kind of identifying that these staff will be city staff, and they might go into take measures. So these vehicles will be probably marked with no city logos, so that staff will feel relatively safe in terms of not. Conducting these site visitations, and it'll kind of protect the employees from using their own fleet vehicle, and in terms of using their own vehicles to conduct these site visitations. So that's why we're requesting for the Bureau to use salary savings to purchase these vehicles.
That was some advice that we received from speaking with the state agencies, the Federal Department of Labor, the people that do the investigations. Having the unmarked cars is a boost to the safety of our staff, and it also prevents employers from being tipped off when we're coming. So that was the reason for the unmarked vehicles. We felt it was very important.
Members, are there any questions?
Question
here. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, help me understand. I don't see where are you going to at least, before I ask, how many employers are registered with the Office of Finance? Do you have a solid number?
I believe it's over 200,000.
Okay. And are official letters from the city informing all employers, these 200,000 plus, are official letters going to be sent, or have they already been sent? And I hope they have, because we're 7 weeks away, notifying employers of the new law.
That was actually a key part of our initial outreach strategy. We had planned to send quarterly mailings throughout this year leading up to July 1st. However, when we sought a quote from GSD about the cost of the mailings to that many businesses, the quote came in over $200,000.
How about for one-time mailing?
For a one-time mailing.
200,000?
Yes.
But you hope to reach over 200,000 employers with a new fleet of a few cars and social media and different, communication outlets. You hope to reach over 200,000 that are going to be responsible and liable and required by law to pay the new minimum wage. I am just very skeptical.
Well, what the Bureau have done in previous communication, they have mentioned that they were working cooperatively with the Office of Finance and also with the DOP, who does send bills and having them incorporate the minimum wage laws into those
That's
bills.
great, but is it already set that will happen? Because we're 7 weeks away.
Yes,
It is.
the Office of Finance has been including notices in the mailings that they sent back in December. So we felt that that was a more cost-effective approach of getting the word out. So every business that receives a hard copy bill statement from the Office of Finance did receive notification in that newsletter back in December.
Okay, they did.
They did. For those businesses that choose to pay online, we have a notice highly visible on the Office of Finance's website, so we tried to reach them that way.
Okay, that helps. And can you also do your quarterly approach through the regular mailings for DWP as well and achieve your goal that way?
We did pursue that. We weren't successful in securing, including,
For DWP?
Correct.
Well, that's something we can work on because I think the overwhelming majority of employers aren't going to want to not follow the law. My concern is if we don't do proper outreach, they're going to be unwittingly ensnared into all these complaints, and it's going to make everyone's job tougher. And the employees aren't going to get what they're supposed to get by law. So I think it's inexcusable that DWP is saying, "Oh, we'll just do this once for you." No, they're a city proprietary department, but they're a city department as well. And if that's our vehicle to help reach employers on a more consistent basis, they need to get in line, I would suggest.
We will definitely pursue that. And Office of Finance has been extremely helpful, and I fully expect those notices will continue as well.
And let us know how we can help. In fact, I'll look into this on my own a little bit, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? Mr. Ru, go ahead.
Yes, the Office of Finance notifications, are they in language? Is it only English or are other languages available as well?
I believe they are in English only.
Okay, so knowing that we're 2 months out, so I'm assuming your outreach efforts included papers, ethnic papers as well?
Yes, correct.
And reaching out to the various chambers of commerce?
Yes.
Business associations and all of that. Is there any kind of metrics that we could I know with this we're just talking about transfer, so we're asking you a lot more here than you probably anticipated. But if you don't have it now, I'd love to see those metrics about your outreach and how successful it's going. Because I do have the concern with council member, with our chairperson hat as well, that you're transferring the salary savings. I think it makes complete sense to have unmarked vehicles. I have no question there. But, any salary savings, I'm just concerned that if we could even hire at the last minute to increase in the outreach effort. So I just really like to see some of the metrics of your outreach that's been done so far, especially to smaller businesses.
I would be happy to follow up with that information. Just off the top of my head, we did publish advertisements in 18 different publications, which included a variety of different languages and then cultural audiences.
Yeah.
And we have information on our website in over 12 different languages. So this is something that we realize is essential and we're continuing to do. We also believe our community outreach contract will enable us to utilize organizations who have these linguistic expertise, and we'll be able to reach small businesses as well as non-English speaking businesses.
The community outreach, outside contractors, community outreach contractors, they're already in place?
We signed the contracts last week, so we are in the process of finalizing task orders that will get them out into the field as soon as possible. That's something that this transfer of funds will enable us to do. Our budget request includes funding for this contract, but that would not be accessible until July 1st. So that's why this transfer is really important, because it will enable us to use these organizations prior to July 1st.
Like Councilmember O'Farrell, I mean, I offer my anything I could do to help, especially with ethnic media. It's not just paid advertisement, but you could utilize free press as well. So, which I'm sure your community providers will be able to do.
Thank you.
I just want to revisit the car thing again, not let it go. I feel much more comfortable with, maybe we can refer this to Budget and Finance, Mr. Kokorian, but I would like to suggest or actually amend the recommendation to remove the purchasing of new vehicles. I don't have a problem with you having unidentified vehicles. I think it's important for the work that you're going to be doing. But I think you can probably use a vehicle that's 2 or 3 years old within our carpool. I don't think that there's a need to use staff saving to be able to purchase brand new vehicles. I think that the staff saving should be used in perhaps translating some of this material so that we can get to a lot more people before July 1st, hiring more people because of the amount of business that we need to reach out to. I think the manpower and communicating with people about the change is a lot more important than buying a brand new vehicle.
And Madam Chair, to add, maybe some targeted mailing, especially in languages other than English, perhaps should be considered too.
So I would be more comfortable if we removed the purchasing of the vehicles from the recommendations.
So, Madam Chair, I think, thank you for the suggestion of referring to budget. I think if this committee wants to make certain recommendations as a committee report and then refer that report to Budget and Finance, we'll be happy to take those things up. A couple of things that I'll deal with when it gets there, but one question is, to what extent were the salary savings for ConAd already anticipated in their budget for next year? In other words, okay, there's or even for 15-16, that some portion of salary savings were already budgeted. So is this savings beyond what was budgeted?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It's beyond what's budgeted.
so it wouldn't have a
We wouldn't have
reserve
it.
impact.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm not entirely clear on how we could contract with the CBOs in 15-16, given the fact that there's 45 days left in the fiscal year or something. How would we even utilize that money in this fiscal year, or would that just be a way to effectively roll it over into 16-17?
My understanding is that this transfer would enable us to use the salary savings to fund work that's performed this year and the next couple months. So it would basically enable us to tap into the contract a little early because it is in place, it is signed, but it's not funded. The budget request requested funding effective next fiscal year, July 1st.
Right. Well, anyway, you know what? We can deal with it in budget.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, members,
And I would like to make it clear that this is actually going to be in council tomorrow.
I understand that, but I'm still going to amend. Yeah, clear about the sense of urgency. But again, what I'm speaking to is the salary savings being used towards something that is gravely needed, which is more staff and reaching out to more businesses in their language. And if that hasn't been done, I think that's a better use of money. And if I can make that amendment, so I'm going to go ahead and...
Madam Chair?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I am with you 100%, and actually, if it could be all transferred more to providing additional funds to contract with community-based organizations to perform community outreach and other support services, I would be 100% in agreement. But at the same time, I don't want to... I know the department... I didn't get a chance to talk to the department beforehand about the urgency of requiring the cars, but can we leave a little bit of wiggle room for them to see if they can't find any pool cars, or if they, where they can't remove the decal? I mean, I think they could easily find pool cars and maybe remove the city decal, right? But
Madam Chair, that was actually going to be my request. Is along the lines of what you've instructed, could we also instruct GSD to remove decals and markings from 4 cars.
Sure,
that
absolutely.
identified for
Yes, I wasn't going to leave you without cars. I didn't finish my amendment.
It's totally a fair question, but I think we would like to ensure that we do as much as possible to protect
Sure.
our employees.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. Because we have not reached out to the number that was mentioned earlier, that's 200,000 businesses is a lot of businesses. And if we're not doing it in the language that they understand, I'm very concerned about that as well. So I don't want anybody to get dinged on, after July 1st because we haven't done our due diligence. So if I can go ahead and make my amendment that to move this forward and amend that we use the salary savings to be used in a way that we can reach out to more businesses, whether it be through CBOs or more information and translate it in their language, and to instruct, is it GSD?
Yes, please.
To provide you with vehicles without unidentified vehicles for the use of your investigation.
Correct.
We want to refer this report to Budget and Finance as well.
So I'd also like to address the reason that this report is coming separately from an FSR. There are deadlines the controller has set and the GSD has set, which may not be relevant anymore, for the encumbrance of monies before the end of the fiscal year. We wanted to make sure that we moved monies fast enough in order to allow the Bureau to operate, but also to beat those deadlines so that we don't lose the monies into next year and get caught in this weird place where we don't have the money to do the work that we need to get done before July 1st.
Sure.
So we separated this out from the herd. We made sure that we didn't double count it in the budget and in the FSR that's forthcoming to your committee, and tried to move it forward so that the Bureau could have the resources necessary to complete their work between now and July 1st, June 30th. So I have no problem with a diversion to another committee or anything, but we do need to try to move this as quickly as we can to allow the Bureau to get as much work done between now and June 30th.
Sure.
And beat those
Understood.
deadlines. So.
Sure. So can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. O'Farrell? Seeing no objections, the motion passes.
And
There is one card.
And I would
item.
like to work with the CAO to make sure that the language, because there is very specific language, to work on the language so that way we could get the intention
Absolutely.
of your amendment.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And we have John Holland here from CCA on item 8.
Good afternoon. John Howell with the Central City Association. I've spoken numerous times to numerous committees on this issue, and I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I just want to thank you, Madam Chair, Councilmember O'Farrell, for your points, Councilmember Rue. One of the things that CCA has said from the get-go is that wage theft is a crime, and that people who do it intentionally should be punished to the full force of the law, but that people who make clerical errors or are not properly informed of it should be given leeway. And pay back what is owed to employees, but shouldn't be penalized and in a punitive way. John Reamer at BCA has been very good in altering the enforcement protocols going forward, but there does need to be better outreach to both business owners who are not English as a first language, to businesses that might be located outside the city of Los Angeles. And what CCA has found in trying to mobilize on other issues, small business owners, these are folks that work from the 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. like that DOT sign you discussed an hour plus ago. And they may not be online, they may not be watching the media, et cetera. So there needs to be more money going out to this, so I applaud you for these actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. And that concludes cards on this item.
Prior to
Yes.
that, are we still going to be moving item number 8 to Budget and Finance as well? Or what would you like to?
Yes.
So, the item tomorrow in council.
It's a budgetary item, so it's fund transfers. It's the entire thing's a budgetary item. So.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Sending it to Budget and Finance. All right. Thank you very much. I have no cards for public comment, so I move that we adjourn our committee meeting. Thank you very much.